the Garden Report day after Sixers took a blowout loss in Game 2 in Boston and head back to Philadelphia 1-1. Keith Pompey is here from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Welcome in, Keith. And we're going to get into Games 1 and 2 here. And I'll put the ball in your court first. Out of these first two games, what's your biggest takeaway from the series so far? What's the biggest thing that stands out to you?
Well, it has to be game two because the game one was great, but they played without Joel Embiid and they everything looked good for the 76ers, right? But when you look at game two and how they lost by 34 points. Joel Embiid came back. He was a little bit he needs to get back in shape, get his conditioning up. And then in addition to that, they got blown out, man. They got blown out. So to me, moving forward, that's more of a reality, not reality, but something that they need to approve on because you're going to have to play with Joel. So to me, that's the thing that stood out the most, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm going to go to Embiid too. I'm surprised he not only came back so soon. I guess this is 13 days after the injury initially occurred in that Brooklyn series. I'm surprised he played in the series at all. Now, you saw some of the timelines kicking around that it's 4 to 6 week injury, and didn't sound good to me, especially through the Shams reports that it was higher than grade 1. And you see him out there last night, makes 5 blocks, defends the rim well, gave them a little bit of a boost early, but the awkwardness on offense and went to that knee a couple times after a few awkward falls. Looked like it was bugging him out there. Now, I saw his post game, and he didn't really want to elaborate on how he felt too much, it looked like. But I'm just surprised they got him back out there so soon. Is it just to kind of get him back in the flow because they were going to have to do it eventually, or do you think he rushed a little bit here?
Well, and what he said is after the game, because I did ask him about that, like, why today? Like, why not wait? And he was saying that's when he came out and said there's a 4 to 6 week injury, and he's not going to get any better if he waits 2 days.
Yeah.
The thing is, he feels like you said, he needs to get out there and get back in condition, and he felt like this was a good time to do it, and then he can move forward to see. Because no matter when he came back, he was going to have to get back in shape and get in better condition. So that's the reason why he chose, last night. He also felt like, he can give his team a lift, help them go up 2-0, so to speak. So that's the reason why he decided to come back Wednesday as opposed to Friday in Philly.
So what is the biggest key for him, you think, in terms of building off this performance? Is it conditioning? Is it getting back in the flow of the offense? What do you think the biggest issue for him from game one was?
I think there's two things. So, like, and then I know you said the biggest, but I think there's two things that's really equal. One is you got to get comfortable with the knee brace and feel get confident in the knee. You know what I mean? So you get bumped and stuff like that. So that was number one. That was 1A. 1B would have to be the conditioning. Like, I don't know if you were out there seeing him work out pregame, but it was like, I mean, he was like down on his knees a couple times, like at least 5 to 6 times trying to get, gasping for air. He's out of shape. So
Right.
he has to get back in shape. So those are, to me, are the two things that has to happen. Once he does those, I think that everything will come back to him. I mean, let's face it, he is the MVP, right?
Yep.
So, it's one of those things where he is the offense number one option. I think they only missed him for 2 games. Not think they only missed him for 2 games. So I think that part will play itself out. I just think that he needs to get in shape and have confidence in that knee.
Right. And that's the upside, I guess, to getting him back with a 1-0 lead in the series, get that bad game out of the way, and then hope that he builds off that. Now, everything else, maybe for James Harden, it was going back into more of an ancillary role around Joel Embiid because he finishes 2 for 14 in this one after that spectacular game one that I think some people consider his best playoff game ever. frankly, and I can't disagree with that. Just spectacular in game one, making it all happen, ball in his hands the whole time. And this game, whether it was that defense Jaylen Brown played on him, which was excellent, or the drop, I guess, or just having the ball in Embiid's hands more and moving back out to the perimeter and kind of that catch and shoot role. I don't know what happened here for Harden and some of Embiid's teammates here who were so good in game one.
Yeah, it was weird. Like, didn't it look different from the start to you?
Right.
Like, it looked like to me, the whole day was bizarre because you were at his press conference and everything, and you saw how that could have been a distraction to him. You know what I mean? You're focused on MVP and, oh no, I got to play the Celtics.
It was
tonight.
Embiid day, yeah.
It was Embiid day, and I felt like, I don't know, he normally he doesn't speak he doesn't speak the morning of. Like, he just doesn't like speaking during shoot around.
And he spoke for a half hour.
And then did all this other. Then he spoke with ESPN. He spoke with a local television station, in Philadelphia. But to me, when the game started, it seemed like instead of them getting out there and going, and James like trying to, find a guy streaking to a basket, they got past half court and then they slowed up and they waited for Embiid.
Right.
And everyone was standing around. The ball was stagnant. And it allowed the Celtics to get back into their defense and do things. And if you notice, Embiid initially, he wasn't even going to the paint. So like they would slow the ball down and he's standing at the 3-point line. And you're like, uh-oh, whoever shoots this ball better make it because the Celtics are going to go back on the other end. And that's what they kept doing. So it looked like to me they were trying too hard to implement him back into the offense, and the ball didn't move, and the spacing was horrible. And I think that's something that they got to work on.
Right. Just 3 attempts from Embiid at the rim in this one, which is way less than you're looking for from him as a player. And he can hit that mid-range. He goes 2 for 4 from there, which is fine. But not enough shots, not enough minutes either. I mean, the way the second half went, and this is something Joe Mazzulla talked about, and it has been the key between these teams this year, those non-Embiid minutes. And once Brogdon came onto the court, who I know you were high on last game and was excellent with the 6 for 10 3-point shooting, Grant and some of the others off Boston's bench, they were able to really drive up some runs once Embiid was off the floor. And he came out with about 2 minutes to go in the third. And the Celtics pretty much shut the game down in the time between the end of the third and the first couple minutes of the fourth there, where that bench just sent Philly packing. So Embiid really didn't even get, and this whole Philly team didn't even get an extra quarter that they probably should have had for figuring each other out again here, because this game just got out of hand so fast. And this was Boston's offense setting the pace in this game. Like you said, Philly playing slower, Boston flying up and down the court, getting quick shots, getting a ton of threes up, and hitting them at a pretty high rate once the third quarter started.
Yeah. I mean, that third quarter was crazy. They outscored them, 19 in the third? I mean, it was like they really put it on them. And the one thing I will say, give Joe Mazzulla, I just butchered my man's name, but give
Joe
give
Mazzulla.
Yeah, Mazzulla. I said Mazzulu. but like, give him credit, because here's the thing. He
was getting all the blame after game one here in Boston.
Exactly, and he made the adjustments. And the Sixers didn't, and they put it on them. But you're right. It just seems like to me from the Sixers angle, you look at it like you said in the first game, guys were making shots. They're bench guys. And it looked like some guys were out there, they were missing, then they start passing shots up. And to me, it was a bad sign. The guy from Boston area, George Niang, he comes in there and he's the sniper. He rains threes. And there were several times where guys ran at him and they got him off a spot, and then he would like pass the ball, or he would like throw up something and mess it up. So, I just felt like the Sixers, they just, I don't know, they were just out of whack, especially in that third quarter. And like you said, you can't go by the fourth quarter because Doc was resting his starters, and the only starter that was out there and at the start of the fourth was Tyrese Maxey, which he
Mm-hmm.
normally isn't at the start of the fourth. And then with 10 minutes to go, he took him out. So yeah, it was a bad display.
Yeah, and you watched the fourth. I don't watch garbage time, as we call it, much. I went right downstairs and started getting set up for all of that for the post game. You liked Luke Cornett, I guess. You liked what he
Well,
did out there.
well, the funny part is, like I normally do, I always say, like, it's a bad night when such and such is beasting people. But
Yeah,
they for that was kind of like the equivalent of a preseason game. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Where you get the final preseason game where guys who normally don't play do stuff. But he was as they say, beasting them. He was grabbing rebounds, going up strong.
Six points, 4 rebounds in 5 minutes, 3-3 shooting for my guy Luke Cornett.
yeah, I was like, yo, what are you guys doing? like, you know.
So this is what I expected out of this. We know the history. You've watched it for 3 postseason series, and 4-0 in the bubble and 4-1 in 18, and even this year 3-1. And the Celtics probably should have had that last game there if their starters played. The 50-pointer there from Embiid. The Celtics have just dominated this matchup, and I came in with Embiid hurt, saying this could be a sweep. If he's not able to get out there and the Celtics play at the level they have, like, this could be a quick series. And game one stunned me. I knew Philly was coming in 12-5 without Embiid. I heard about the pace and everything and how well Harden plays and all of that. To see it actually play out like it did, though, was stunning. And Philly really took it to them that night. So I was concerned of whether Boston would be able to adjust to that. But when Embiid comes back, it's basically that same matchup issue for Philadelphia where Celtics are able to go bigger. Grant can play, and he was awesome in this game after not playing at all, really, in game one. Horford makes an impact on Embiid. Rob's able to play in that drop. So it's a whole new matchup with Embiid out there. Whereas in game one, and I'll get your takeaways from game one and what the keys were for Philly in that night. They set the pace. Harden was unstoppable, getting all of the matchups he wanted, and Boston really didn't have an answer for the Sixers' offense, even though the Celtics were pretty much scoring the other way every time in that first half.
Yeah, you know what, and you're right. I mean, it's one of those things where you look at you look at the Celtics roster and you look at the Sixers. The Celtics just don't match up well when the Sixers go with a smaller lineup.
Right,
They just
Tucker at
don't.
center, yeah.
Yeah, they don't. And Paul Reed, is a little bit better than what people think, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To do the things again. Now, something else we have to be honest with ourselves. You said something about James Harden. That was his best playoff performance, right?
Yeah.
Like, or do we expect him to get 45 every night? You know what I'm saying? So like
Hitting tough shots too.
so you got to factor that in. Play against those lineups because it's all about mismatches and this and that. So that game, I will say that the Sixers look good, but also, it is also one of those things where guys were making shots. They were. Now, the one thing I will say about in the NBA, particularly, you typically have it two ways. Two things tend to happen when the star player and Joel Embiid is the MVP, right? When
Mm-hmm.
you have the MVP, he doesn't play. You tend to have the opposing team says, okay, well, he's not playing a little bit. And that goes in their mind. And people always make it seem like, oh, no, NBA players don't do it. No, they do. They do. They do it, right? So,
Al Horford admitted it after
he
game
admitted
one.
it, but see, when he admits it, people are saying, "No, that's not the reason." Nah, it does happen. And then also something else that people don't realize is a lot of times when the star player goes out for the team for a certain team, guys elevate their play because they look
Yeah.
at it like this is my opportunity. We have nothing to lose. Let's go out there and ball out, so to speak, right? So I think we saw a little bit of that. Now, again, as bad as it was, it was still a close game. I mean, People talk about that Maxey when he got the steal and everyone stopped. He got the layup, but then Tatum came right down and he made that basket, right? No, excuse me, he made the 2 foul shots. But then that's when Harden got the switch and hit that huge 3-pointer. So if Harden doesn't make that shot, this could be a 2-0 series. I mean, it
Right.
could be,
Yeah.
and a lot of people aren't thinking about that. But there was a lot of mistakes made on Boston's end. The Sixers played phenomenal. Harden had 45, 7 threes. You had a guy, DeAnthony Melton, who was their sixth man. He was 5 for 5 on threes in the first half. On a time when Boston was shooting lights out, he kept the Sixers in the game in the first half. So everything was breaking right for the 76ers. So, it's one of the things. This could easily be 2-0 and the Sixers could be in panic mode.
Right. Yeah. Boston led by 4 with about 2-3 minutes left.
Yeah.
And then you had the Maxey 3-point play, the block charge call and Smart there that swung everything. Terrible possessions by Boston down the stretch in that game. And that's what Philly's got to do is get to crunch time. This has not been a great crunch time team in Boston going back 2 years here. So that's going to be what Philly needs to do, because throughout the flow of the game where Boston's getting all these threes off and running and gunning offensively, that's where they're going to build these big leads. And if they carry that into the second half, there's going to be no crunch time for Philly to be able to out-maneuver, out-execute them, whatever you want to say. I can't see the Sixers blowing out Boston in a game here. Boston just has too much firepower, too much ability to score, and too much defense, frankly, which is what you finally saw from them last game. I do want to get to those guards because I do find them interesting on the Phillies side, especially Tyrese Maxey. But first, I want to give a quick shout-out to our sponsor here in FanDuel. Been here for a couple months in Massachusetts now. Go check them out at fanduel.com/Boston, where they're now offering a no sweat bet up to $1,000 for new depositors. It's fun this time of year. You got NHL playoffs, you got NBA playoffs going on, and they're giving you $1,000, up to $1,000 in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. No better place for all the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Just go to fanduel.com/Boston for that no sweat first bet up to $1,000. Baseball is going on now as well. Can do it on anything. But FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the NBA, as well as ours here at CLNS Media. So go check them out. Here you go. No sweat first bet up to $1,000. FanDuel.com/Boston. There we go. There's the Celtics one. All right. Shout out to them. Back to Keith. I want to talk about these guards, Keith. This has always been a tough, it's just a tough matchup for Philly in general, but it really is for Tyrese Maxey, who I saw during the regular season shot 35% against Boston, 10 points per game, fouled nearly 4 times per game, gets into a lot of those mismatches that Tatum and Brown and others try to set him up in, and it's just tough for him to be out there. But this guy is so crucial to what Philly does. I thought he was really good in game 1. What's the key to getting him going? Because the ball is going to be in Embiid's hands a ton. It's going to be in Harden's hands a ton. So Maxey's not a great shooter. He's a solid shooter, but off the ball, I don't know how much he's going to be able to do in that regard. And after this pretty good game 1 for him, he just ends up with 13 points here on 6 of 14.
Yeah, the thing about Maxey, he's really good when you get him out in space. Now, he was one of the top 5 3-point shooters this year. But the thing is kind of like his game is basically, he's a great third option. Now, I give Boston credit for what they've done in the past. They kind of tried to shadow him, take him out of his game, to let Joel Embiid score as many points as he wants, but you're not going to let Maxey, you're not going to let Tobias Harris beat you, right? So the thing is, I think that the best thing, and this is what really worked well for them, if you notice when Offa misses and stuff like that, someone grab the rebound and all of a sudden they give the ball to Harden and you'll see Maxey just streaking.
Yep.
Like he's a quick guy.
He
You
beat the
see him?
Celtics up the court a couple times early.
Yeah, yeah, he'll beat you up the court, and what happens is you get him in space, and then next thing you know is like layup, transition three, whatever. But that's his game. I mean, that's his game, and he plays well. A lot of times, if Harden is having a great game, a solid game, and I mean by great for standards is I'm not saying 45 points. I'm talking about where Harden is hovering around like the double double with the assists and everything and getting guys involved, right? So, the thing is, you have to do that to get Maxey off. But a lot of his stuff is like push and pace. Now, the problem is with what certain people will do is they'll like shadow him. They'll always have a guy on him, a quick guy to try to like when they get out, and Harden's not going to make that pass because it's a 50-50 ball, like for football or whatever, right? You're not going to do that. And that's where they have problems. But the best thing to do is to get him in space, off of misses, get the ball to Harden, and then he'll streak down there and you're just pushing the ball up to him.
Yeah, the transition game's key in this series. And Philly struggled during the year, I believe, right? Guarding the transitions. That's another area where this series just ends up being tough for them. You probably of course at this point you'd rather play the Knicks or Heat on the other side of the bracket. It just ended up being that they got that good first round matchup in Brooklyn, tore through them in 4 games. You had all the talk coming in about how long the layoff was. Doc was calling it like a training camp, and it looks good in game one. You're fresh, you're ready to go. Everybody plays at their best in that game, but now it's every other day. And this is the other tricky thing for Embiid is that there isn't a lot of recovery time between these games. They're going to play the next 3 games over 5 days here, 5-6 days. So there's no rest in this series, unlike round one where there's those 2-day gaps between games here. And game 3 feels crucial for Philadelphia, not letting Boston go up, getting a good game out of Embiid, playing in front of the home crowd there. I'm excited to see that home crowd because Atlanta, they got going late in the series. I'm trying to think of last postseason. The Warriors are good. Milwaukee's good, but Miami and Brooklyn round one. I've seen some bad crowds through the last couple playoff runs here, but Philly, a couple of times I've been down there. It's going to be rocking.
Yeah, it is. It's funny. Like I don't mean to change up, but when you went to Atlanta, did they do that? Like go back?
Yeah, the flag serve.
Yeah, and then did they also have any like local rappers performing?
Yep.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
trying
Like
to think of who Rich Homie Quan, he came out.
yeah. And it's funny because where they perform at is like near like the home bench. So it's kind of like the coach is trying to like during a timeout, he's trying to give it instructions, and like the rapper is rapping, and you're like, oh, the visiting coach is like, great, you came here, but we can in the huddle. Now here's the thing: the one thing that people know about me in Philly is I'm far from a homer. I try to tell it like it is. So, but I do think that the 76ers have, and believe it or not, I feel like the momentum right now is in Boston. But I think the 76ers will probably win this game, right? Game 3. And the reason why I say that is when you get blown out the way that they got blown out, it's kind of sort of you can't sleep at night if you're like one of these, a guy who really wants to win. You're embarrassed. You can't wait to get back on the floor and play, right? And then not only that, it's one of those things where, Joel Embiid won MVP. The crowd is going to be hyped, right?
Yeah, they'll probably do a little pregame thing for him. Yeah,
they might do a pregame thing for him. But then not only that, it's like we all know how, you've been covering the NBA. Role players tend to play better at home than they do on the road. Now,
so who are you looking for in that sense? Who's got to step
well,
up?
I think the Boston guy. I'm going with the Boston kid. Now, again, they're going to attack him on the defensive end. Jordan Niang, when he's out there, they're going to switch on him and they're going to get buckets against him. But I think that he's going to make some shots. I think the Anthony Melton might have a better game. So I think that the 76ers are going to win because of the electricity. And I'm from Philly. people in Philly hate the Celtics.
Yeah, and
And
vice versa.
and vice versa. So you know it, but it's also one of those things where, let's keep it real. The Celtics have won. Like, if there's a rivalry or a series, the Celtics typically come out on top. I mean, we just talked about the last couple playoff series. The Celtics won the last 5 playoff series, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is, it's going to be, F Boston, all this other crazy stuff, and it's going to be hype. Now, the problem is, in my opinion, if the Sixers lose tomorrow, it's over.
Yeah.
Because everything is set up. Is one of those things where you is one of those things where you just got blown out and you can't sleep good at night. You're coming home, you got the MVP, you have all that other stuff, right? And if you lose, I think it's over, man. I do. I think it's over. Like, they may mess around and trip up the Celtics if the Celtics get overconfident after that. But all this stuff is set up for a nice revenge game, because while the Sixers are being motivated, right, the Celtics are going to be like, man, Joel Embiid's back. His knee is messed up. He was falling around on the floor. And we did what we normally do when he plays. We won. And we just didn't win. We blew him out on a night that Al Horford struggled.
Yeah,
On a night
1 for
that
8 or
Jason
whatever.
Tatum, he went 2 for 10, and
2
Jason
for 10.
Tatum went 1 for 7. So the Celtics are looking like, yo,
That's the big one, huh? Tatum did nothing last game, and they came out on top.
Exactly. So that's where I'm coming from. Like, typically when you blow a team out, and you tend to like, oh, this is easy. And when you get blown out, you tend to want to come out swinging, right? So those are the things that really, where I think it could be the Sixers could win. But if the Sixers lose, it's over, bro. It's over.
Yeah, and we'll have that referendum on MVP. Embiid comes out the winner here pretty overwhelmingly. I think he
Yeah.
got, 73 votes out of the 100. I thought it was going to be one of the closest votes ever, but he ends up running away with it. A strong narrative in his favor. He probably deserved it. I would have voted for him if I had a vote. He was just incredible this year on both ends of the floor. And you see, my big thing with him is 5 blocks and the stuff he did defensively last game. That's as great as Jokic is, and Jokic was ridiculous this year. I mean, those two were pretty much 1A and 1B. That shot blocking and all the defensive stuff Embiid does, and this was a top 10 Philly defense this year, that I think puts him above Jokic if I had to pick between those two players. But it's close. I mean, Jokic balances it out by being able to throw 10 assists in a game, and Giannis is Giannis. So it's a great race. I didn't get to ask him yesterday, but I did want to ask him about Giannis, Jokic, those guys pushing him year in and year out, like what that's like. Because that's just, there were some other errors where, Jordan and others were dealing with some great players at the top, and a few guys did beat Jordan back in the 90s. But this seems like the toughest race I can think of in terms of trying to stand at the top of the league. And at 4th, you did have Tatum. And he was the early front runner for this award. It's so easy to forget now when Boston was on that 21-5 start. He's been good in the playoffs when you look at the numbers, 26, 10, and 5. Good shooting. He's up to 38% from 3. But he's had a few weird games like this last one. And there's ones where he gets off to slow starts. And Jaylen Brown has really carried this offense for a lot of the playoffs. It's a great team in Boston. And obviously Tatum's at the head of the snake. But I'm just wondering where you're at on Tatum at this point. Like, is he in this mix with Jokic, Giannis, and Embiid at this point?
Nah. I'm sorry, man, but no. I mean, not to me. Here's the problem. I like Jason Tatum. I like his game. The one thing is, it's weird to me. Like, okay, so in game 1, right, Jaylen Brown was basically torching the Sixers, like torching them. And I felt like part of the problem they lost is he only had like 3 shots in the second half or something like that. It was like they just went away from him. And I feel like Jason Tatum stepped up and started like trying to take over, which, don't get me wrong, he's a great player. But when I look at them, they just look like an AAU team to me sometimes. It's like you got you got two great players, but it's like when one guy is hot, you stay with that guy. You
Right.
stay with him.
What was that in game one?
And I'm
6.
looking I'm like, yo, Jaylen Brown is killing the Sixers.
6 for 7.
Killing the Sixers.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, I'm better than you, dude. So like to me, he's a great player and he's going to be there and a great player, but like, sometimes you got to be a little bit aware of the situation. And I don't think that that's always the case, because like, if you want to be honest with yourself, I mean, the people in Boston, like, they got the best team in the league, man.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know if it's all together a team.
And that's the thing, right? You look at the teams that are left, and Philly, we know they have the edge over Philly, given what we've seen so far in this series and history. It's New York and Miami on the other side. I mean, a golden opportunity there if you get to these finals to beat those teams. And then you look at how the West is shaken up. It's the Lakers, it's the Warriors who look vulnerable again. Denver, I'm interested in what Denver's going to become here, because I think we've all overlooked them a little bit, and they've just been killing everybody so far this postseason. So they're interesting to me to some degree, but the Celtics are head and shoulders above all these teams talent-wise, and they're making it tough on themselves. 1-1 series now. You go 6 with Atlanta, and that was pretty close to going 7. They were trailing late in that game. There's something off here still, and they got it together last game in a big way, but you really came out of game 1 of this series saying, what is going on with that Celtics team? Like, guys are pointing fingers. The defense was terrible. The offense was out of sorts late. And again, this should be the golden opportunity for Tatum this year, for these guys to bounce back from that finals loss last year. They're healthy. I mean, this Embiid injury is a big break for them. But you're still not looking at them and saying they're a slam dunk just because of some of their slip-ups.
Yeah, see, the thing is, and here's something else too, you got to understand, is some of the slip-ups. But I'm just going to go, let's go back to the 08 championship team. And the reason why I'm talking to you, Celtics, you cover the team. So people here can relate to this. So when you had the big three in Boston, people made sacrifices.
Right.
So if you're out there gunning all the time and trying to be the man instead of making that pass, it's hard to win a title, because all championship teams, that's what happens. Now, again, there is a hierarchy, right? But when you go back to that 08 team, you look at Kevin Garnett, for instance, his points went down, right? When he went to Boston, he got buckets, but he was a leader. He was the, like, let's go, let's do this. You look at Ray Allen, he suffered the most. But at the end of the day, all three of these dudes, the big three, they're all in the Hall of Fame. And no one can tell me how many points they average.
Right.
But what they do is you sacrifice. So when you look at this Celtics team, the one thing is, and I think that was part of the problem that Marcus Smart was saying last year, he's having issues.
Pass the ball, yeah.
Yeah, pass the ball. Guys got to sacrifice. Another thing is, there are certain things, sometimes, you have too much. You have too many good players, to whereas you have a young coach and some of his rotations, some of his lineups, this and that, he doesn't know exactly, what he's going to do. So those are the two things. I think they got to get a better grasp on the rotation late in games, what they're going to do. And also, guys got to realize we have to sacrifice things, because that's what they do. You know what I mean? You got to sacrifice things. Like, every team isn't exactly like a cookie cutter squad, like Golden State, where they got the Splash Brothers and you got a bunch of role players. Other teams like that Boston Celtics team, 3 Hall of Famers, Rajon Rondo. They had other guys, they had guys coming off the bench. So, but they all had a role. And I feel like that's the problem with this Celtics team. It's like, you're looking at them in the first half and you're seeing guys getting hot. And then all of a sudden turns out to be like an AAU team or not AAU. It's like, AAU, like the summer circuit. And you see like the college coaches over there, and you want to show them you can get 50 so you can get this scholarship. It just seems like it's a little bit too much guys going for self on this Celtics team. And I'm talking about the elite guys, not the role
Yeah,
players.
I don't think it's a selfishness thing. We've talked about this a lot because
Yeah,
those guys do struggle with moving the ball sometimes, and that's what I think holds this offense back in key situations. They're willing and they're able, Tatum and Brown. It's just like you said, the AAU thing or whatever it is,
yeah,
them being stars all their lives, they've been able to get it done scoring the ball.
yeah,
And now at this level and this point in the playoffs where teams are loading up on you or they're trying to take you out of your game, you have to trust the ball movement and trust that the ball is going to get back to you. And that's been the key for Tatum. When he can get off the ball, and I thought he did this so well early this year, he's great. And he's going to have an amazing game because he just impacts so many areas. But when he's trying to do it all on the ball, that's where things start to slow down and they start to struggle a little bit. So that's going to be the key for them. Yeah, it's definitely not selfishness. Like, I don't think these are ball hogs who are just trying to go out there and get their stats. I think it's just about what's natural for them versus what they are trying to develop as playmakers. And they're still young players. Tatum's my age, 25.
oh, you're a
Brown's
young buck, my
26.
man. Young buck.
Me and Tatum are actually born the same month, which is crazy. But yeah, someone was laughing. They said you probably don't even remember 08. That means I was 10 in 08 when the Celtics won the
Oh, you
championship.
don't remember it? Woo!
I got the DVD.
The DVD, huh?
They did the documentary. All right, I got one more thing for you before we get you out of here. And thanks again, Keith. Been a great conversation. The Sixers, what are the stakes here? Because I do find that interesting. If they lose this series, they can say, all right, yeah, we had a great year. Embiid was hurt. Things got weird late in the playoffs. Maybe we run this back. But there's a lot of inflection points coming here. Now, obviously, the Ben Simmons thing got things weird last year, and that's what you say about last year's team to some degree. Harden coming in there midseason, give him a whole year. Now there's just been a million reports, it feels like, that Harden's got his eye on Houston. And
Yeah.
who knows how that's going to go. Can you replace him if he leaves? Is it a better idea to let him leave at this point in his career rather than pay him max money? I think there's a good debate there. But this is how many years of Embiid falling short of even the conference finals, never mind the NBA finals. This group around him probably isn't getting any better outside of Maxey, in terms of young guys coming up. You wonder about Doc at this point, a couple playoff runs for him. Just what are the stakes for these key guys? I guess I'll say Doc, Embiid, and Harden to get through this series at this point.
I mean, but I think it's deeper than them too. Like you think about Tobias Harris, a lot of
Right.
other guys. I think before the Embiid injury happened, if the Sixers didn't get out of the second round, I felt like Doc Rivers was going to be gone.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? I think maybe the Embiid thing may have people thinking like maybe it's not all the coach's fault, right? But when you look at the Sixers, just to give you some history, the last time that the Sixers been out of the second round was in 2001. That's the last time that they've been
Iverson,
out.
right?
Yeah, Allen Iverson, when they went to the championship and lost. And
That's
then
unbelievable.
and then before that, you weren't even born, dude. It was like in the 80s. Like seriously. They're in their last 12 second round appearances, they're 1-11. 1-11 in their last 12 second round appearances, right? So when you look at the Sixers right now and you say it, James Harden could end up back in Houston. So you look at it, you traded Ben Simmons. Now Ben Simmons is struggling mightily, so no one's going to say, well,
It's a good trade.
It was a good trade, right? But what happens if Harden leaves, right? So then you lose Harden. And then next thing you know, you like Doc leaves or you fire Doc or something like that. Then all of a sudden you're starting all over again. Basically.
It's a bad team at that point.
It's a bad team again. But the thing is, like, that's the thing that people don't understand is that, you brought in Daryl Morey, a high profile executive who is getting paid a lot of money. You have Doc Rivers, making money. He's a coach, but he's making money like an executive, right? He's
Right.
getting paid. You know, you have 3 max players. Even though Harden took less, you got James Harden, you got Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid. Then Maxey is going to want to get paid, and you got all this on his team, and they're not doing any better than Brett Brown. You know what I'm saying? Like, think about it. Like, you
Right.
remember this one a couple years ago, they played the Celtics when they had Ben Simmons and all these guys, and they lost in the second round in 5 games. So after that point, right? A couple other people, Danny Green, that didn't work. And now all of a sudden you say to yourself, where are we? We're no better. We did all these changes, and we're no better than Brett Brown and the roster he had. So I think that's what they have. That's going to be a problem, dude. It's really going to be a problem.
And Embiid's been so patient through all of this, and he's gotten better and better through all of this. There might be a little bit on him in terms of him coming up in these moments, but I feel like it's such a small number if we're going to put a number on it, because he's been a constant and everything else just keeps spiraling around him. And the Jimmy thing is what you look back on if this era does come to an end at some point in the next couple of years here. That was the guy. And they had Toronto, who went on to win the championship in Game 7, and one of the crazier games to look back on in terms of swinging history for different guys and different teams. Ball bounces around on that rim a couple times, and that was Philly's golden opportunity, and they let Butler go, and that's the moment you really look back on and say they needed to keep him at all costs. I mean, that was the guy to push Embiid. That was the guy to be one of the faces of this team. And the Simmons thing just went sideways, and who knows who's to blame for that, but beyond that last year going wrong, it never seemed like a great fit. And I don't know how you felt about that
Nah.
all those years, but it was just always awkward between Simmons and Embiid on the
Yeah,
offensive end.
yeah. See, that's part of the problem when you tank, right? So let's say you tank for a couple years. So you look at it. So you get Joel Embiid, right? Now
You're grabbing
here's
the best players.
yeah, you grab the best players, but see, also the one thing is, if not for a stress fracture in his foot, Joel Embiid would have been the first overall pick.
Right.
So then you get Ben Simmons, who was supposed to be this guy, first overall pick. Then you had the guy Markel Fultz that Boston duped the Sixers with, right?
Yeah.
So you get all these guys, they all want to be the man, and that's the problem. Because when you tank, you get what you want, but they all want to be that guy, and that's where you find yourself competing. Like, whose team is it? Like, this and that. Like, realistically, it was supposed to be Ben Simmons' team, but Ben got hurt, and then Joel, when he played before he got injured that season, he played phenomenally. So it became his squad. So that was the power struggle, and it was like it was never going to mix. And they're two completely different people. Like, you were there yesterday. Joel got a robe, didn't even put it on because he doesn't wear watches. Like, Joel doesn't. He's not a flamboyant guy. Whereas Joel likes to sit at home. He doesn't even like going to restaurants. He loves seriously. He doesn't like going to restaurants. Where you have Ben Simmons, a guy that has the nice jewelry. He always surrounds himself with the prettiest supermodel girlfriend. He's getting Porsches made. You understand what I'm saying? Like, made. He's making it because he's so big. He wants a Porsche made. Like, so it's like it's fire and ice, so to speak. They were different. They were
Right.
different
And
guys.
so are Brown and Tatum, but they've
Yeah,
made it work.
they made it.
And that conversation gets had a lot, especially through the bad times with them. But in terms of being different people, and you can have all the same conversations about what Tatum and Brown are into and who they are and them as players too, fitting on the court. They've made it work on the court. And that's what's most important here. And you wonder, looking back, if Simmons and Embiid just could have made it work, because the talent was there in Simmons' case. He had to do more as a player to, I think, fit in next to Embiid. And maybe Embiid should have done more to make Simmons feel comfortable. which is
Yeah.
ultimately why he asked out that last year. But I don't know. And again, it's a 1-1 series. We're talking like Philly's done here. But this is just kind of been the era it's been for Philly here. A lot of promise, but just so many things going wrong at the wrong times, especially in this Embiid injury, the latest one. We'll see how it goes on Friday night. I'm excited for it. I'm excited. One of my favorite things about this series too is Al Horford being a villain on the Philly side.
Yeah,
we
they
didn't
can't
even
stand
discuss
him.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, they don't even. Yeah, they hate Al.
the
Al's
booze
a
he
great
gets
guy.
there.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's easy to forget he was in that Philly uniform for a year, especially since it was a bubble year. But he's back in Boston now. That's been a huge addition for them. Philly stole game one, so they can't be too upset with where they're at in this series given Embiid's injury. It all goes down Friday. Game two, we'll have coverage down there at CLNS Media, Celtics All Access. Of course, check out Keith in the Philadelphia Inquirer and on the ground at Pompey on Sixers on Twitter there. Appreciate you, Keith. Appreciate the time. He's heading down to Philly practice. I know Joe Mazzulla is going to talk later this afternoon as well. So stay tuned for all of that. And then we'll see you down in Philly, heading down there tomorrow morning. Keith, I'll see you there.
All right, man. I see you. What's your prediction of it on this series? How many games?
I'm going to keep leaning into Boston wrapping this up quick. I guess I'm going to go down with the ship if this is a 6-7 game series. But I had Boston in 4. I was wrong. I'm shifting to Boston in 5. I
Okay.
think they're going to wrap this up quick. But you got Philly in game 3, so you're looking at a 6-7 game series, right?
I kept saying, and initially I kept saying Boston in 5 initially,
Yeah.
but then I was like, maybe. I always felt like the Sixers would win. Believe it or not, I felt like the Sixers would win Game 3 and they would come back and win Game 5. The reason being, I felt like Boston would get overconfident. I felt like Sixers would get a jolt of energy at home, and then I felt like Boston will go and do what they did against Atlanta, right?
It is
But
tough to imagine Philly losing both at home. Yeah.
yeah, both of them. But the thing is now, I don't know, man. I really don't
This
know.
Embiid thing's the wild. If it keeps looking awkward with Embiid, it's gonna be over fast. But he's with 3 games here at least to work it out. You got to think he's gonna have one great game, even just shooting the ball.
Yeah,
If that's all he can do.
yeah.
So
But I
maybe I
gotta go
should
with
move it to
I go
6.
with the season 6, and because I just feel like the Sixers will get to. I feel like they'll get another game. I feel like they'll get another game.
You might be right. And yeah, looking back at the regular season, they did almost have that one in Philly with the Tatum game winner there. We'll see. They can definitely grab one at home and make this go 6 here. And again, we'll have all the coverage down there in Philly. Thank you, Keith. Great talking to you, man. And we'll catch you down in Philly.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
All right. Appreciate Keith. Appreciate all you for being here. Thursday afternoon, early show. Want to get that in with Keith before he heads over to practice there. Of course, shout out to FanDuel. Get your first bet, no sweat, up to $1,000 back in bonus bets when you go to fanduel.com/Boston. If you lose, you'll get it right back. So shout out to them. Athletic Greens, always love for them. Athleticgreens.com/garden. You'll get a year's supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. It's powder you put in your water each morning. Get vitamins, minerals, adaptogens, probiotics, pretty much everything you need over there to start your day. Cool containers to store it in. Love the bottle you just drink it out of. And of course, they're going to throw in the 5 travel packs, which are great. Heading down to Philly, take those with you. Get your energy, get your nutrients and everything you need. You can get them in different places. That's going to add up. Athletic Greens allows you to get it all in one with these bonuses. Your supply of immune boosting vitamin D as well. That's athleticgreens.com/garden. And BetterHelp, betterhelp.com/garden. Connect with licensed therapists right from your phone. If you just need to talk, it doesn't always have to be an emergency. You can go over there and find someone who's right for you. Change your therapist at any time and get 10% off when you go to betterhelp.com/garden. Convenient, on your phone, affordable, everything you're looking for in therapy. And the accessibility, I think, is the big one. It can be nerve-wracking itself looking for a therapist. BetterHelp's going to help you out with that. BetterHelp.com/garden. I'm Bobby Manning. Appreciate you guys in the chat. And appreciate Keith as well. Great guest here today. Celtics beat the Sixers one more time in Game 2, 121-87. Game 3 is tomorrow. Josue Pavone, our great producer Ahmed, as well as myself, heading down to Philly in the morning. So check out our coverage once we get down there. Shoot around's going to get going around 10, 11 o'clock, I'm sure, on both sides. And we'll have coverage from both teams once we get down there. Game 4 on Sunday as well. Then we're back in Boston for Game 5. Appreciate you guys. Of course, jump in the Discord. Always want to give a shout out to the Discord. I think I got that here somewhere. Yeah. Discord, clnsmedia.com/Discord if you want to continue the conversation beyond our daily shows here. I'm hoping to get Tim Bontemps on at some point this week as well. Got in touch with him, and he said he'll come on at some point this series, so stay tuned for him as well as the normal crew after the game tomorrow. Jimmy's out. He's taking a little hiatus, as always, so John, Sherrod, Josue, and I are going to be holding it down tomorrow night. We'll see you then.